We are hearing and may continue to hear and actually use verbs that begin with RE. This next presentation, Reconnect, Refresh, and Renew. Our next presenter is very familiar to many of you. Suzanne Grimmesey is the PIO, Chief of Strategy and Communications with the Santa Barbara County Department of Behavioral Wellness. Suzanne and her department are a wealth of resources and support for our community, especially our overall school communities. Suzanne has worked closely with county-wide school districts, providing training and leading school-based behavioral health disaster and trauma response, including post-vention response to suicide, student deaths, psychological first aid, and aiding and establishing ongoing support structures. Please welcome Suzanne to the podium.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the welcome. So I am guessing that as wonderful as it is to be back in person and actually seeing faces today, faces with legs below them, that many of you are probably sitting here today feeling exhausted and worn out. I even heard words out in the coffee line, like feeling like we're in a fog. We are living in a new emotional landscape. This may be, like I said, the first time that you're seeing each other in a very long time. If the pandemic is not enough weight alone, I know for sure that we've all together gone through cumulative high-stress events, traumatic events within our community, and that's not counting our own personal lists of all the challenges that we have, and I know we all have them. We've also shared the last few years in grieving together, grieving the loss of traditions and celebrations that were not the same, grieving the loss of precious time with ailing loved ones, and grieving the loss of deaths, COVID-related or not. There's been a lot over the last few years. And then, and I don't need to tell you this, but there's a unique impact on educators in the school community. And oh my gosh, even though students are back now in person, the impact that's left, as you've already heard twice this morning, teachers and students alike. It's been 2 years since the School Wellness Summit has last gathered in person. I would like to focus time today talking briefly about reconnecting, not only with yourself, but also finding new ways to connect with colleagues, taking time to refresh, and renewing our focus on mental health as we move forward together. A silver lining of the pandemic has been bringing to the forefront conversations about mental health. It's wonderful. I can't think of a better time to keep student and staff mental health conversations at the forefront as well as now, as we readjust together. It worked. Chaos will always find us. Things are going to continue to happen. It's our job to find our way through it. These last few years have been challenging for everyone, but we're finding new ways to learn, new ways to connect, and new ways to ground ourselves and focus on what is important. And this is resiliency. I like to share this picture in the last few years when I talk about resiliency. I took this in the area of the debris flow in Montecito. I'd been out there several times after the debris flow. The ground was just this hard, cracked mud. There was no way anything was getting through it. This was the first time I went back after some time, and there were little tiny spots of green that were trying to come up in different areas. And then, out of nowhere, there was this lily that wasn't just a spot of green. It managed to find its way through and actually bloom. It was incredible. That is resiliency. We get to choose our paths. We get to choose how we feel every day. And this is more powerful than sometimes I think we pause to realize. We may not be able to control the events that occur, but we're able to control our experience with them. Whoops. Last fall, Behavioral Wellness led a community behavioral health or mental wellness survey. We knew that globally, throughout the nation, that people's mental health had been impacted from the pandemic. We wanted to know what the impact was here in our immediate community. And it was an amazing process. We had over 5,000 community members respond to the survey. About 12% of those identified themselves as educators, so that would be about 600. We saw all kinds of things, but we saw that our data matched what is globally and nationally. About 61% of those that participated said that their mental health was negatively impacted from the pandemic. We learned a lot of information. A couple of the questions on the survey looked at people's symptoms that they reported related to anxiety and depression. And then there were a few questions that dug even more to see, of those that reported those symptoms, how many met the clinical rating scale for an anxiety disorder or a depressive disorder. And as you can see, 21% of all that completed it met the clinical cutoff rating for depression, 30% for anxiety. Speaking of feeling, I'm missing a slide, but that's okay. Speaking of feeling exhausted, having trouble sleeping, that was also a part of the survey. We looked at people's physical health symptoms, because oftentimes that's easier to talk about. And we saw over a third of respondents said that they had trouble sleeping, that they were feeling tired, that they were feeling exhausted. So speaking of that, I want to touch on something that is often referenced as something called compassion fatigue. I've had the opportunity, especially in the last several months, I've gotten requests to speak with community organizations, with various teams within the county family, departments within the county, and people are saying the same thing. They're saying, I or our team, we know that we should be feeling normal again because of where we are, the pandemic's over, almost over, but we're not feeling quite normal again. Can we come talk about that? People are saying also they're feeling like they're maybe waiting for the other shoe to drop. They can't quite identify it, but something doesn't feel quite back to normal like they feel like it should. So many are describing these symptoms associated with compassion fatigue. Oh, there's the physical health slide, okay. So compassion fatigue, we know from research, is made up from two things, burnout and secondary traumatic stress. Burnout, I don't need to tell you what that is, you know what that is. Secondary traumatic stress is hearing about the trauma experiences firsthand from another. It's about working in an environment where one is exposed to the trauma experienced by others. This is what you do in the field of education. This is also known as psychological secondhand smoke. What does compassion fatigue feel like? Compassion fatigue feels like you're experiencing low energy, low enthusiasm, low motivation, low empathy, low performance, high levels of frustration, negative emotions, cynicism, feelings of indifference. Compassion fatigue may look like an increased cynicism at work, a loss of enjoyment in one's career, and eventually can turn into depression and or stress-related illnesses. It can attack both your professional and your personal lives. And the most insidious part of compassion fatigue is that it attacks the very core of what brought you to your work, empathy and compassion for others. Maybe next slide. Oh, there it is, okay. Self-care for all of you in the school community is critical. You spend your working career caring for students. During high-stress events, you place the needs of others first. Many people I've seen in this profession are really good at bearing their own emotions. I've been at many schools during difficult times, and I've seen your ability to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, to wear your happy face, to put on your strong person masks. I've seen you wearing these badges of honor. Not focusing on your own self-care is a fast recipe for burnout, for compassion fatigue. I'll also add that I've seen that you're really good at not hitting that pause button. Your energy level is truly incredible. I hope today you'll be able to be present, to just take in, to reflect on successes, reflect on growths, lean into them. So we talk about compassion fatigue, and it sounds really horrible. So is there anything we can do about it? Yes, there absolutely is. I think of things in acronyms, so ABC helps me to remember. Awareness, knowing that compassion fatigue, knowing that this is a thing, and that something can be done about it. I heard a really great quote recently that reminded me of the awareness component. The expectation that we can be immersed in suffering and loss daily and not be touched by it is as unrealistic as expecting to be able to walk through water and not get wet. So awareness. B is balance. Balance in everything. Balance in your personal lives. Balance in what you eat, how you exercise. Balance between your personal and professional life. And C is connection. You are your best assets. You know what the work is that you do. Stay connected to one another. We get to choose our paths, and we get to choose how we feel every day. Telling ourselves that we're going to have a good day just before you get out of bed can be very powerful. You get control of your day. It's been for a long time throughout history and in all different cultures, people have been looking at how do we change our experience with bad situations? How can we change the way that we feel? How can we take more control over that? I was recently, someone shared with me a great book called the Toltec Wisdom Book, I think is what it was called. And there were 4 agreements in there, agreements to self, and I wanted to read them to you because they were powerful to me. 1 is to be impeccable with your words. Speak with integrity. Don't talk negatively to yourself, or about others. The 2nd is don't take anything personally. The 3rd is don't make assumptions. And 4th is to always do your best. We can control our experiences. We can control how we walk away. Compassion fatigue and burnout will always be a possibility. Taking care of yourself will allow you to do your job and allow you to have the spare capacity to do so. Maximize this day together. Choose to let go of the mental list of the things that you could be doing if you weren't here. Having had the privilege to be at the School Wellness Summit many times before, I know that today will be fully charged. It will be an exciting day, and perhaps a day that will allow you to have thinking that will move things forward, maybe even to leave some things behind and lighten your load. Reconnect, refresh, and renew. Words are important. So I looked up the definitions for each, and I want to close on these. Reconnect, to connect back together. And for all of you, to reconnect with the why. Why are you in this field? Why did you choose to be an educator? Refresh, to give new strength and energy to something, to reinvigorate. And renew, an instance of resuming something after an interruption. We're sharing this journey of change together. We are living and working together in a brand new emotional landscape. We have to hold one another accountable for our self-care. We have to laugh together, grow together, support one another, and remind one another, even in action, why you chose this field. And that might even include picking each other up in times when we fall. I hope you'll be able to sit back today to reflect, take notes on key points that you hear throughout the day that jump out at you. Make goals for yourself. They may end up even being life-changing. I was looking through notes I have from the summit from many, many years ago. These past few years have been really, really hard. I hope you'll leave today feeling rejuvenated and ready to march forward. Thank you so much for the opportunity to join, and have a wonderful day.
Many of us may do this as part of our work, or we know of others who do that in supporting the littles and learning their ABCs. But we too, as adults, also have to learn or be reminded of our ABCs: awareness, balance, and connection. Thank you, Suzanne, for your ongoing guidance and support. We appreciate you.